Welcome to our first virtual Stonefly Refresher. Your two presenters today are myself. I'm Sally Petrella. I'm the monitoring manager at Friends of the Rouge. And Sue, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Sue Thompson, Friends of the Rouge, a longtime volunteer and also a board member. So I'm very happy to be here as part of this. And I also work for Wayne County and partner with Friends of the Rouge and doing our benthic monitoring as well. So I'm very happy to be here, and thanks, Sally, for asking me to participate with her.
Great. And Sue, we can see you on the video, although you've got a great lighthouse background, but your face is a little black. But nice to at least kind of see you. Thank you so much for co-presenting with me today. So Friends of the Rouge started offering this training in our lab 2 years ago as a way for team leaders and volunteers to learn and practice identifying stoneflies in preparation for our annual Stonefly Search. We, of course, couldn't do that this year, so moving it to online means that we're not going to be able to show you live bugs in the lab. You're not going to be able to use a microscope to look at preserved specimens. But in lieu of that, we've been able to allow a lot more people than would fit into our fairly small lab at the Friends of the Rouge office. And so we've tried to make it a little bit more entertaining with some quizzes and some videos and things, and we still hope that you will take a lot from this. Friends of the Rouge is a nonprofit organization that works to restore, protect, and enhance the Rouge River watershed through stewardship, education, and collaboration. And this Stonefly Search is part of our monitoring program that engages citizen scientists in collecting data about the health of the river that is used to assess its health, to look for problems, to really assist in the whole restoration of the river. We've been doing this program for quite a few years. In fact, this is going to be our 18th annual Stonefly Search. Sue?
Okay, on the screen, I'd like to thank the sponsors for the Stonefly Search. Without their support, we certainly wouldn't be here having this training and sending you out coming up here in a couple weeks. So that would be the Herb Family Foundation, along with funding from the Alliance of Rouge Communities, the Washtenaw County Water Resources Commission, and also we have volunteer Lynn DeGrand and her husband Stuart Steele, who generously supported with their own personal funds. And also with that, since I don't know how many of you out here are members of Friends of the Rouge or are thinking of joining or would like to support us financially, these programs need funding to be able to be sustainable and to be able to keep continuing to collect all the important data that we do collect, and also get you out in the field to be able to do that. So if you can afford a little bit or anything that you can to help support continuing these efforts, so we'd certainly appreciate it. So thanks for considering that and also joining us tonight.
Thanks. I hope all of you become members. I've been a member for a long time. So tonight we're going to start by giving you a brief introduction to stoneflies, why we look for them, what they are, where we find them, and a little bit about stonefly biology, as well as just a little bit of information about what to expect when you come to the Stonefly Search, especially since 68% of you have never been on a Stonefly Search before. Then Sue is going to cover stonefly identification, how to tell them from the other critters you find out in the stream. We'll have a brief quiz. We'll stop and take a few questions. Then we'll move down and dig down deep into how to tell different stoneflies apart. That's kind of a specialized skill, which is you kind of need a microscope, but there's some things that you can do out in the field. So we'll go over that, follow the quiz. Then we'll tell you a little bit about this new program we started last year as part of the Stonefly Search, testing our sites for road salt in the river, because that has a big impact on the freshwater organisms. And then we will stop for questions or end with any questions. If you don't have any, feel free to go on your merry way, but we will stick around as long as there are questions, at least for another half an hour. So, why stoneflies? The Stonefly Search is part of Friends of the Rouge's long-term monitoring program, where we use the bugs that live in the river as indicators of river health. Biologists and citizen scientists like you do this all over the country, and basically healthy sites have lots of sensitive bugs. Like you can see in this picture, you know, when we do the spring and fall bug hunts, we look for, you know, crayfish, mayflies, leeches, all kinds of things. And basically the more sensitive ones you have, the better shape your site in. The EPA and the state of Michigan, the cities and the townships where the Rouge River is located all support this monitoring because it helps them with understanding the issues in the river and how the work to restore the river is proceeding. So in the spring and fall, we look for all the bugs. In the winter, we have this special event where we only look for stoneflies. Why is that? Two reasons. One, of all the bugs that we find in the river, stoneflies as a group are the most sensitive to pollution. So if we find stoneflies, we know the site is still in pretty good shape. Secondly, unlike most aquatic insects that hatch out when it's warm, stoneflies hatch out in winter. So if this is your first Stonefly search, and I would really encourage anybody who's participated before to add into the chat any other advice that they would have that about a Stonefly search. But you know, a lot of us have been, all of us have spent a whole lot of time this year inside of our houses, and this is one great opportunity to get outside, and to get outside in winter when there's not a lot of other opportunities. And we have no idea what the weather could be. It could be, you know, 10 below, it could be 60 degrees, it could be snowing, it could be icing, it could be raining. But people who like to be outdoors know that there's no bad weather, there's just bad clothing. So if you're prepared, you're going to be comfortable and you're going to have a good time. So, and don't think that just because that sweatshirt and pair of jeans you wore for your walk yesterday, you know, worked fine. When you're out there and you're sitting picking through trays and there's snow on the ground, you need to remember to have put on your long johns, your wool socks, your warm boots, your gloves, your hat. And then to be comfortable, we suggest that you bring a chair. We provide tarps, but during COVID, it's best if you bring your own. If you have a camp chair, a folding chair to sit in, you'll be far more comfortable. We also, you know, encourage you to bring things like those chemical hand warmers if it's really cold, extra clothes, a warm beverage in a thermos. Also, it's a good idea to bring, you know, your cell phone. That will also probably help you find the site. A camera that also might be in your cell phone. Snacks, something to drink, and you will have a really good time. You get to explore new places. About a week before the event, we will have assigned you all to a site. Some of you may requested areas or team leaders. You will get the directions to your site, and a lot of our sites are parks, but not all of them. Sometimes it's just an easy place that we can get to the stream. So we'll give you directions as to where to park and then a map as to where the site is. So look for the river, look for your team leader. We'll try to give you their phone number. And once you find them, you know, 6 feet away, but make sure you introduce yourself to your team leader, to the other volunteers. Your team leaders have been through a lot of training. They're very knowledgeable. They're very enthusiastic. And for this event, they're actually going and picking up the equipment. So they're really working hard to make it happen. Your job, your main job, if you're not a team leader, is to be a picker. So you're going to be handed a tray of stuff from the river, and you just want to look for the stoneflies. So, and you want to look under the leaves and, you know, pick under bark, things like that. And again, if you have a chair, if anybody has those TV trays they used to use, that might even be nice, just to be comfortable. And then you will learn how healthy the river is. So when we do the spring and fall bug hunts, you'll actually come up with a score, determine whether the site is good, fair, poor, excellent. With the stoneflies, if you find stoneflies, that's a really good sign. If you find a lot of stoneflies, that's great. If you find several different families, that's even better. Move forward here. So participating in a group event like this is going to have some risk for spreading COVID. This is why we canceled our spring event, but we've learned a whole lot about how this disease spread, and there are now pretty good guidelines that can minimize your chance. So, you know, we can't guarantee anything. That's why we have you sign a waiver. But if we all follow these procedures, we can really minimize any chance of spread. You know, and one of the first things, of course, is the health screening that we ask you if you have any kind of symptoms. I know I'm the type of person that would drag myself to work even if I was feeling well. In this case, don't do that. If you even have a cough or something, just let us know you're not coming. So some of the adaptations for this event, we normally meet in a big group, so you get to see all the teams, meet a lot of people, eat coffee, eat donuts, have some coffee. Obviously, we can't do that, so instead you'll be meeting your team on site. We try to minimize the size of the groups. If you have family members, household members, we encourage you to get them signed up with you. Registration is now closed, but if you are not signed up, just give me an email. I can work you in, and if you have additional household members, just let me know and I can work them in. We do ask you to travel separately. I mean, travel with your household, but not with people that you're not currently living with. Wear a mask. We do require masks at all times. Yes, you'll be outside, so masks are less of an issue than if you're indoors. But we're wanting you to maintain social distance. There may be occasions when you're passing something, you can't do that. So keep the mask on. It reduces the risk for you, reduces the risk for the rest of your team. Bring your own chair, and then wash or sanitize your hands when you're all through, or if you're going to eat anything. So I see we have some questions. What is the size of stoneflies? We will get to your questions. So where do we find stoneflies? This is a map that shows you the whole watershed, and the brown are where we looked for them and didn't find them, and the green is where we find them. And I'm going to pull this map up a little bit more. So basically, most of the stoneflies that we find are in the less developed areas of the watershed, out on the western edge and the Johnson Creek area. And I see my map isn't moving. And also some of the tributaries of the lower. And these check marks, you can take a look at this map. It shows you what years we've sampled and whether we found them or not. So some of these sites, we find them just about every year. Other sites, so the middle and the lower, we found quite a few, quite often. The upper, they're found far less frequently, although I think Bill is on tonight. We sent him to a site up on the top of the upper branch, and this is the first time that we have found them in Minnow Pond, a tributary to the upper. So we found them up there. We have not found them in the main branch, upper part of the main branch, but we do find a particular one Sue will talk about that likes bigger river sites, the Teniopteryx. We were very shocked to find one on the main branch at 8 Mile. So those are the general sites, and we will be sending you to a site that has had stoneflies before, so there's a pretty good chance that you might find them there. What is a stonefly? So a stonefly is an aquatic insect that spends most of its life in rivers and briefly hatches out to fly around, mate, and lay eggs. Most of its life it lives in the stream. They like to crawl around on stones in the stream and along the edges, thus the name stonefly. So stoneflies have really high dissolved oxygen needs. That's one of the reasons that they're so sensitive to pollution, because any sort of contaminants in the river tend to rob the oxygen out of the river. They prefer fast-moving streams that have riffles, cobble, bends, that gets the oxygen back into the water. And part of why they're so sensitive is because they get their oxygen, like fish, they get their oxygen from the water, but they actually assimilate it through their skin. A few of the different types of stoneflies have gills, but not all of them. And they're adapted to living in fast-moving streams by kind of crawling around, or you'll see how that doesn't always work so well in a video I'll show you later. One of the things about getting oxygen is they sometimes do some things physically to help get more oxygen. And I have a video here. I think it's going to come up. Sometimes they do push-ups. So let's see if you can see this video right here. Might take a minute. Oh, there we go. So, did you ever think that stoneflies would go to the gym and do push-ups? So that's just helping move the water through, helping get more oxygen. So the Stonefly family, the Latin name is Plecoptera, meaning braided wings. I'll show you that on the adult. You don't really see it in the larva. And basically, we are looking for the nymph. We're not looking for the adults. In the rouge, they're tiny. So somebody had put the question out there, do I need my reading glasses? Yes. Yes. I mean, you don't need a magnifying glass, although that might help too. But they are very small, 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch long. Long, thin antenna, 2 long tails, and then these 2 sets of wing pads. So here I'm showing the adult. You can kind of see why they call it braided wings. While we know that they hatch out in winter, I think maybe once or twice in the 18 years that we've been doing this, have actually seen adults crawling along on the snow beside the stream. We are looking for the nymphs that live in the river. A little bit about their biology. Some of the types, like the slender winter stoneflies, which are the most common one we find, are shredders or detritivores, meaning they eat rotted dead plant material. So you're going to find them in the leaf pack, the rotting leaves, the quiet places in the river, the pools. But then we also have a couple families, the Preloadeds, the Perlids, that are carnivores. In fact, they will eat the other detritivores. And they will be walking around on stones like stoneflies are wont to do, but they also will stalk the leaf packs and the wood in the stream, looking for stoneflies and other aquatic insects like midge larvae, caddisfly larvae, blackfly larvae. What's their life cycle? Stoneflies live in the stream for a couple of years as a nymph. Not all stoneflies are winter stoneflies, but the ones that are considered winter stoneflies actually go dormant in summer, which coincides with the time when the river probably has the lowest levels of dissolved oxygen. So they just kind of burrow down into the bottom in between the rocks and don't do too much. And then they become active in the fall when the river is colder and more dissolved oxygen. And then they hatch out of the river, molt one more time, and lay their eggs. And before I start this video, I actually have to do something real quick. So I'm sorry to stop share, but I want to make sure that you can hear the sound on this. This is a video that kind of shows you how these guys live and how they hatch out. We were just fascinated by it when we saw it. So I'm going to turn this on. Hopefully you can hear the sound.
The stonefly is an ancient insect that predates the oldest dinosaur. It thrives only in the cleanest and most oxygenated waters. A common misconception is that all stoneflies are big and that their emergence is a bellwether of spring. Most are actually rather small, and many hatch in the dead of winter. Winter stoneflies are dark to absorb the heat of the sun, and when temperatures drop to below freezing, the relatively warm insects simply melt into the insulating snow. Some stoneflies are gargantuan. It takes a full 3 years for the lumbering nymph of the Terranarces stonefly to achieve maturity. This unusual, multi-year lifespan provides an important food source for fish during seasons when most aquatic insects are in their egg or nearly microscopic states. This little fish obviously doesn't appreciate the important role the nymph will play during the lean seasons of late summer and fall. The nymph is a weak swimmer, and when subjected to the current, it becomes a weightless and utterly helpless creature. Compare the buoyant nature of the nymph with the lead-filled imitations used by most fly fishers. After 3 years underwater, the nymph moves to the shallows, crawls on shore, then stumbles inland until it finds the perfect perch from which to molt. Unlike butterflies and other insects who go through a pupal phase, the primitive stonefly undergoes what is known as incomplete metamorphosis and transforms directly from the nymph into the winged adult. The adult stonefly may live for weeks on the river's edge, hiding in streamside foliage, mating, and occasionally returning to the water for a sip to drink. In the process of laying their eggs, many get trapped on the water and once again become available to hungry trout.
I love that video. Poor stonefly, but you know, they are trout food. So I'm going to turn it over to Sue right now, and she is going to tell you how to identify these things. So Sue, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Sally. So the next section of slides that we're going to be going through are focusing on identifying the different types of stoneflies that we may encounter while we're out in the field during the stonefly search. Some of the features that we normally would be looking at under the microscope, and that due to the small size of the specimens, unless you were looking at a pteronarcis that was just featured in the video, they're going to be pretty small, so that you're not going to see like the two tarsal claws or the two toe claws without a microscope at the specimens that we see here in the Rouge. So keep in mind these when we're out sampling. What we want to focus on mostly is to get you to recognize at least what the stoneflies are, and not necessarily the different types, because you would need a microscope to be able to differentiate some of the families, because some of them do look very similar. But we want you to focus on basically they have two long filamentous tails, as you saw in the video prior to this. And then also 2 sets of wing pads on their thorax there, which are circled there in red, which Sally's pointing out there with the cursor, and the claws. So on to the next slide, please, and we'll get into some more details. So you just saw the primary features of what a stonefly looks like. These pictures here are some of the things that that sometimes get confused for stoneflies, because unfortunately, as things get collected, we're aggressive with the net, and tails, like 3 tails on the mayfly, they would tend to get knocked off, or on the damselfly. So some people say, well, geez, it's got 2 tails, and well, if it's damaged during collection, that helps make it harder to identify. So we'll go through some of the next few slides. We'll show you some of the ways to differentiate. So if we want to go on to the next one. Okay, up in the upper left of the slide is what the stonefly looks like. So you can kind of keep that in your mind as kind of your reference point when we go through these next series, to show some of the things that aren't stoneflies that might help you differentiate when you're looking at samples in the field, when you have multiple things in the tray and you're trying to figure out what it is. So this particular commonly confused insect is the mayfly. So here you can see, we've already mentioned with the stoneflies, is that they have 2 tarsal claws rather than 1. That may be very difficult to see, as again, given the size of the specimens what we're seeing. Normally that would be a microscope trait to look for. But also the mayflies would have gills, the fluffy gills or the round gills on their abdomens, which none of our stoneflies are going to have those. So that's one thing that'll clue you that if it's a mayfly. But the biggest thing with the mayflies is, again, the 3 tails. None of the stonefly families that we're looking at have 2 tails. So that's a big distinctive differentiating right there. Next slide, please. Okay, another commonly confused insect is the net spinner caddisfly. So you can see here, this the caddisfly has the net spinner has the 3 hard plates on the top of its head, and you can see our stonefly doesn't have that when you look at our reference specimen up in the upper left there. It also has all the fuzzy tail, doesn't have that long, those 2 long thin filaments for tails. As the net spinner caddis has the fluffy tail and all the fluffy gills on its abdomen. So those are things to keep in mind when you're looking at that specimen. Next. Okay, these are dragonflies and damselflies. So what you can see here is the dragonfly has the stout body, and it doesn't have really distinct tails like you would see in our stonefly specimen. And the damselfly, which is long and thin and has the 3 paddle-like tails, which are the gills, and which tend to get knocked off when we collect. So you can kind of see when you again compare those to the stoneflies, the wing pads look different, and again they don't have the long antennae, or the two tails are the distinctive feature. Okay, next. Okay, this is our first quiz that we're going to have. So we're going to test, since we just showed you a few of the commonly confused critters. So which of these on here do you think that, which one do you think is stoneflies?
You have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Which one of those do you think are a stonefly? 1 or more could be stoneflies. Choose which one.
So far, 100% of folks that have responded to the poll have identified number 2 as the stonefly, which is correct. First one you see here with number 1, that is going to be our net spinner caddisfly, and how we tell that is just it has the 3 plates on its head, and you can kind of see underneath. It's kind of the top view, but there are gills on its abdomen, the fluffy gills, and then it's got the fluffy tails. So then our number 2, that's of course our stonefly with our 2 tails and the parallel wing pads and the prominent antenna. And so number 3 insect is this is a And this is a damselfly, so it's got the long, thin body with the large eyes on the specimen, and then the 3 paddle-like tails. And number 4 is our mayfly, and it has the 3 distinct tails. Also has some gills. The gills are hard to see on this one, but you can see kind of those there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things right there on the side of their abdomen there, and so that's how you would tell those from the stoneflies. So moving on to the stoneflies that we find in the Rouge. The Rouge has the 5 different families of stoneflies that are highlighted here on this slide. And so we're going to go through the next series of slides is going to show you some of the details of how to differentiate these. This is for your information only at this point, because typically, again, we'll be doing this presentation in the lab where you're actually able to look at specimens under a microscope and to be able to see what these things look like close up. Some of these you're not going to be able to see at all in the field, but we want you to understand the difference in the morphology of the stonefly makes a difference on what it does and where it lives. And Sally pointed out earlier is that some of them are predators versus vegetarians or shredders that live in the leaf pack. So that does indicate where we're going to find them in the stream. But first, just to focus on the mouth parts a little bit, as we mentioned, the predator versus shredder is we have the stoneflies that are in the leaf pack or in the woody debris that's chomping down the leaf litter and the detritus in the stream. And then you have the stoneflies that eat other insects, including other stoneflies are lurking around in those leaf packs, waiting to pounce on whether it's other stoneflies or other midges or the other insects that live in the leaf packs. So just by looking at the mouth parts without getting into all the different definitions there of what they are, you can kind of see the difference between the mouth parts. Just one's the shredder's set up, it's kind of more for munching on leaf litter and things like that, where the predator has the grasping and tearing mouth parts to consume the other insects. So next slide. Okay, what will be key for you in the field is these are things that, depending on the age of the specimen, you should be able to see. As stoneflies, as you saw in the video, you saw as the stonefly changed as it emerged out of the water, that when it shed its skin, it had the wings. The age of the specimen, the bigger the wing pads are. So some of your more immature specimens, the wing pads may not be as big. But what we see here in this slide is you see the wing pads are divergent, which means you have the center of the body, and the wing pads are coming out at an angle from that midpoint of the body, so it's kind of offset. And you see in the second insect, where you draw that straight line down the center of the body, you see the wing pads are right in line with that. So that's parallel versus divergent. So those are ways we can differentiate some of our stonefly families. Next slide. Okay. Here's one of our first families, and this is the one that we'll mostly find when we're out coming up here this next couple weeks. And these are the slender winter stoneflies. And so they are like their name. They are very long. They are very long and thin, and they have the very long antennae and also the long tails. So those are the ones, when you see them, the wing pads will be in line with the back of their body. You aren't going to see the mouth parts so much, but they are a shredder, so they're vegetarians. They live in, they will be consuming the leaf packs and that. What you may see on their abdomen, depending on the size of the coloration of the specimen, is you may see that fold that's along the side of their abdomen. If you hold it up sideways, you may be able to see that depending on the coloration of the specimen. Because some of the specimens will be darker in the wintertime because they're trying to absorb the sunlight, in the wintertime to help them keep warm. So those are things to keep in mind with the family Capnidae. Okay, next one. Next up is what's called the family Taeniopteridae, which are also known as the Broadback Stoneflies. So you can see the difference here between these and the slender winter stoneflies, because they've got those, this is the example of the divergent, very divergent wing pads. You can see that it almost looks like a jet fighter, the back of it with its wings out at that angle from the midpoint. These are also shredders. And are also found in some leaf packs. They have these gills that are basically under the bottom of their of legs, and so you may see those if the specimens are large enough when you flip them over. You're not going to see the size of the tarsal segments, because those are things that you're going to need to see with a microscope. So the biggest thing for you if you're collecting these out in the field is going to be that super divergent wing pads there that you see. Okay, next up. Okay, the other family in the Rouge is Nemuridae, or otherwise known as Brownstone Stoneflies. These are also have very divergent wing pads, and you can see the picture here. The picture looks very similar to the Taeniopteridae, which broadbacks, which we just showed you. So we're not going to be expecting you in the field to say, hey, what's the family of stoneflies? We're mostly concerned with you just making sure you know what a stonefly is, and if you do have different ones in your sample, if you're fortunate enough to run across that, make sure that we capture those. But again, divergent wing pads, they are shredders as well, so they live in the leaf packs. Some of the specimens look like, when you look at them close, they look like they've got hairs all over their body. So that is one differentiation. The Taeniopteridae won't have those the hairs all over. Some of them may look like Frankenstein if they're big enough. You know, if you, again, in microscopic trait where they look like Frankenstein, where they've got the gills coming out of their necks that looks like the little electrodes that Frankenstein has in the movie, if you remember that, if you've seen that movie. Tarsal segments, again, those are things that you're going to be seeing under the microscope, so you're not going to have to differentiate in the field. Okay, next slide. Okay, here we move into our predatory stoneflies that we find here in the Rouge. And the first of those is a family Preloaded, which also known as the Preloaded Stonefly or Pattern Stonefly. So this particular family, you can tell by the color, they've got a mottled coloring to their back, so they kind of blend into a stony bottom. But they are carnivorous, so they would be eating other insects. So these are ones that do live under stones. If you were to actually pull up a stone in the riffle, you might find some just clinging to the bottom of the stone when you turn it over, as well as is wrapped up in the leaf pack when you sample that when you're out with your team. They have that beautiful patterned body. Some of them actually have spots on their abdomen that you can see. These do not have gills on their body. If you turn them over, there's no gills on their bottom side, and they also have pretty long, graceful antennae and tails. Next. Okay, this family of Preloaded, the common stonefly, these typically, I think one out of the cases that is been collected here in the Rouge, it's more of your later season stonefly, but they do emerge out in the wintertime from time to time. As you can tell by the pattern, they are very similar to our the Preloaded stonefly. They have the divergent wing pads, you know, the predatory, the mouth parts. These are fairly large, but the differentiation there, I think some of them, if they're large enough, you can see their gills, but this one might be one that you need to see under the microscope as well. They have gills on their thorax where the Preloadeds do not. Yeah, they can be easily confused. This is the specimen that is doing the push-ups in the video that Sally showed you earlier. they're just with the size of their body, and because they have all those gills, they go into oxygen stress very quickly. So they will go into going into push-up mode very, very quickly. Like when you collect them, they're in your tray and they're already just, you know, under stress. So that's how sensitive their oxygen needs are. Okay, next slide.
Oh. Is everybody ready for a quiz? Or Sue, do you want to go over the distribution first? You can bring this up
Yeah, if you
here.
want to go through that particular slide. These dots here on the map of the Rouge River watershed. This is showing you the different sites where our different families of stoneflies were found. So Sally, if you want to go through, these are and you can kind of see by the differentiation where they are. They're kind of out more in the headwaters areas. We find in some exceptions, outside of some exceptions, we don't find them down closer toward the main channel a lot, except for the Taniap pterigidae, which happens to be a larger river type stonefly. It's a little bit more of the tolerant ones as compared to the preloadeds and the slender winter stonefly. So Sally's got the map up, and I think she's showing this is the broadback stonefly. So those are where they are found, and you can see we've found they've been observed down here in the concrete channel here in Dearborn. Which is really cool that they're there. And then also we did collect a specimen right out at 8 Mile at Telegraph Road on the main Rouge. So you can see here, they're also found in Johnson Creek, and then one site up here in Farmington Hills. So they do have a limited distribution through the Rouge. Okay, and next here's the brownstone flies, or the nemirids. So here's you can see here that they're fairly limited to being out in the headwater streams of the lower Rouge, and then also of Johnson Creek. And here's our Perlades, and so again here it's mostly in the headwaters here of Fellows, and then also Johnson Creek is primarily where they're found.
Last year, we were asked by the Isaac Walton League if we might participate in their program to test the water at our sites for road salt, because road salt has a huge impact on freshwater organisms in the stream. So we started doing that. I'll show you some of our results in a minute, but for those of you who can assist your team leader or team leaders on here, I am going to run a short 5-minute video to show you how to use this very simple kit that they designed. And
hello, I want to show you how to test your stream for road salt using a very simple test kit that was developed by the Isaac Walton League of America, the oldest conservation organization in this country. To do this test, it's very simple. You can request this test from the Isaac Walton League, and for free they will send you a packet with the test strips, a card for doing the reading, and then you will need to provide a small, clean cup, as well as some sort of device for taking a photo, preferably a smartphone where you can download the Water Recorder app, or you could also just use a camera or other device to take a photo of your results, or you could also just write down what you find out. Prior to getting the sample, you want to rinse your cup 3 times. One, 2, 3. Then you want to fill the cup to about 1 inch of water. The test strip is called a Quantab, and it's got 10 units on it, and it's orange, and you'll see an orange line at the top. That's the line that you're going to use to tell whether the test is done or not. All you're going to do is stick this into your cup. You want to make sure it's not submerged. And then you watch for that top line until it turns black or blue. And this may take as long as 10 minutes. See that the line at the top is completely black, so we know that the test has been completed. We can take it out of the water. And now we can read it. And to read it, I'm going to place it in the slot on the card that the Isaac Walton Lee provides. And to read this test, you want to look at the white that has climbed up the scale. And you can see that looks like about 7.1. If you look over to the side over here, you can convert that. That's 7.1 quantab units. If you look on the chart, 7 or 7.0 is 0.08% sodium chloride or 487 parts per million. Is that good or bad? Well, 5 quantab units or more means that there is so much salt in this river that it is detrimental to the aquatic life in the stream. So this is not a good sign. I have the Water Reporter app on my cell phone here, and you want to submit a report, so you hit the blue circle with the pencil in it. To submit, it's going to open up a map. You are going to need to have location okayed on your phone. You can drag it to make a little bit, make sure it's the right location, make sure that it's at the river that you're on. So I'm actually going to drag that. We're right about there. And then you want to scroll down to where you can put a note. In the note, it's very important to first hashtag it with Salt Watch, the name of this program. That's very important for it being mapped. So Salt Watch, you want to put the date. So today happens to be the 6th of January, 2021. And you also might want to put something about the location or weather. So I'm going to hit save there. And then I'm going to scroll down here to where we take the picture. This is a really important part. So I'm going to take a picture. I could also use a saved picture. But when you take the picture, you want to make sure that you do it vertical and that you get the entire card in the screen. So you want to go fairly close, but have all of it in there. Take a picture. Then it'll ask you, is it okay? That looks good to me. I'm going to hit OK. You want to choose the Isaac Walton League as your group, so it'll show on their map. And then you hit Submit. That's all you need to do on road salt for your creek.
Here's a map that actually shows you the results from past years. So from our Stonefly search, and the red ones are the really high levels. So very concerning. We're starting to look into this. But I also, I wanted to show you that whole app because this is something that your team leader will be doing as part of the Stonefly search. But it's also something that you could do on your own if you live near a stream or you have a site you're interested in or just want to do an additional site over the winter. You could even do it several times over the winter, depending how much snow we get, how much road salt we put down. So just let me know you're interested and I'll send you links too. You just need to sign up and they will send you a kit in the mail. So back to our program here. So we are just a little bit over time, so we'll send you some of these resources for finding these bugs. Thank you so much for participating.